guys, it's Will from Tested. I am here today in, well, Mike Tatum's office, answering questions for you. That's right, it's mailbag time. Let's get started. The first question comes to us from GB Zombie Pie. I don't know that I'd want to eat a zombie pie, so I guess you're safe, GB Zombie Pie. Can you explain the difference between a movie that was shot in 3D and a movie that was shot in IMAX? I use the terms interchangeably and was wondering if there is any difference. So there's a huge difference between these two technologies. IMAX just refers to a really huge size piece of film. It's 70 millimeters. I don't actually know what normal film stock is, but it's a larger piece of film. I've seen the comparison side by side. It's huge. It also has theater specifications. So there's a couple of different theater specs for IMAX. There's like a multiplex style one, which is what you find in your normal movie theater. And then there's the old school classic kind, like they have at the Air and Space Museum in Washington and science museums around the world, where they would build this giant, huge building. Basically, what it means is they run the film stock through sideways, so it is as tall as it is wide, and it's a more square format, but it's huge. So the theater, the screen is really, really tall, really, really wide. You get a much bigger presentation. Now, people do present movies in 3D on IMAX screens. What 3D means, first let me explain what 3D means. I guess 3D means that they have two cameras, or sometimes they shoot with one camera and then like make it 3D later with computers. But they have two cameras and they're set a little bit off. So they have a left camera and a right camera. They actually run two sets of film through, edit the same footage twice, but you have a left eye perspective and a right eye perspective so that you can see, stereoscopically. Basically 3D means it's a stereoscopic movie and you wear the glasses and the shit jumps out of the screen at you and everybody gets a little headache, and if you're sitting to the side of the screen then you have a bad experience. Now people do 3D movies on the IMAX screens. I don't think anybody shoots 3D IMAX, but what they do is they take a normal film stock, shoot it twice, left camera, right camera, and present that on a larger format, uncropped or unmatted for 3D audiences in IMAX theaters. I'm not a huge fan of the 3D stuff in theaters. I think it's fine. I mean, it's a little tiring sometimes. I hate the stuff that jumps out of the screen at you. And, you get the Saw 3D, all that bullshit. I'm not a huge fan of that. But IMAX, I think, is really cool. If you're going to see movies in IMAX, I like to get there early so I can get a seat in the middle because the side seats are always kind of shitty. And it's always better to see a movie that was actually shot in IMAX than to see something that was shot normally and just expanded onto the IMAX screen. Notably, The Dark Knight had some IMAX sequences interspersed with normal footage for the rest of the movie. So you can see both how it applies there. And I think they used like a lot of the Gotham scapes, which I think were Chicago or someplace actually in the real world. This is the classic question. I'm on Verizon and I'm looking to upgrade. Should I wait a few more months and pray that the iPhone is available on Verizon, or should I go ahead and get an Android phone? Are there even Android phones that are as good as the iPhone? It's interesting you asked this question today. There's actually a third option now, although not on Verizon. The recent release of the Windows Phone 7 phones is, it's a really stunningly good OS, especially right out of the gate. I think in a lot of ways it's better than Android. It's definitely not as open or as kind of user-friendly as Android is, as customizable as Android is, but it's much, much more user-friendly, and I think a lot more usable for normal people. If you're okay with hacking and working on your OS at a lower level, then Android's awesome. Still really like Android, but definitely take a look at Windows Phone 7. On the iPhone tip, I don't think that there are iPhones coming to Verizon in the not too distant future. I mean, you're looking at least March or April, maybe even the next generation iPhone that won't come out until June or July. So if you want a phone between now and June, and you want to stay on Verizon, iPhone's probably not for you. There's no Windows 7 phones on Verizon yet either, although I think that'll probably change before too long if they start selling well, because it's a pretty compelling package, in a very powerful phone that's definitely comparable with iPhone or Android. The next question is about beverages. Tested seems to be all about coffee. Where's the love for tea? It's funny you asked that because I actually, on the recommendation of one of our users, I just ordered this crazy teapot. It's all robotic. It lifts tea in and out of the basket. It was crazy expensive. It's definitely not a poor man's tested item. I'm going to test it out. I'm testing it out right now. I'll post a video probably next week or the week after, maybe the week after that. I don't know whether it's going to be the next coffee video or the next, well, I guess it's not a coffee video, but the next video about hot beverages with caffeine. I have an HTC Evo, and I was wondering if there's a way to use a Bluetooth headset for music playback. I would like to use a Bluetooth headset for making calls, but I don't want to have to switch my ear device for listening to music. I mean, there are definitely Bluetooth earphones, headphones, that have microphones built in. Basically, I'm almost positive the Evo supports the A2DCP or ACD2P or whatever. Basically, there's a specific Bluetooth profile for high quality audio, which is what you need for stereo music. It's a higher bit rate. It'll use battery a little bit faster, but it'll sound much better than trying to do Bluetooth over like a GSM encoded, low bit rate Bluetooth earpiece. I don't have any recommendations. I'm not a huge fan of the Bluetooth headsets personally. I like to just get a good wired headset within earbuds. I find that they're much better quality, and it's not too hard to route the wire down my shoulder, through my jacket or something like that when I'm out and about. Natalie311, who seems to have a Justin Bieber icon, asks me if I've ever had an imaginary friend. The answer is no. Great question. C4T asks, I recently upgraded my internal hard drive out of my MacBook Pro, and now I'm looking for a new enclosure for that drive that has FireWire 800 capabilities. Do you have any advice on any particular cases that I should take a look at? Thanks in advance. Actually, I've had really good luck on the FireWire 800 tip from the folks at WiebeTech. That's WIEBETECH. Maybe if I remember, I'll put a little thing down at the bottom here. But WiebeTech does great enclosures. I don't know if they have slide-in, slide-out enclosures for notebook drives, but they definitely have these awesome enclosures for desktop drives that don't even require a caddy or anything like that. You just slide the drive in, shut the door, and it pops up, and it has eSATA and FireWire 800 and all that business. So definitely check out WiebeTech. I think LaCie also does some external enclosures. Alternately, you can go to Fry's or something like that and just get what they have on the shelf. But frequently, those do some intermediary steps, so you lose a lot of performance in the way if they have bad controllers or whatever. So WiebeTech, I know I've used personally. They're really good. Like them a lot. Maybe a little bit expensive, but I mean, it's $30 versus $25 or $35 versus $25, something like that. So definitely shell out for something awesome and get the WiebeTech. It's a great question. I'm expecting a Kindle for Christmas, and I was wondering if you could explain the mess of file formats for e-readers, what the Kindle supports, any good applications for converting these files, and maybe a good place to hypothetically find downloads. As we're all aware, I don't like piracy, so I'm not going to talk about that, but I will tell you that the Kindle supports the AZW format, which is Amazon's format. It also supports Mobi Pocket, and which is PRC format. A couple of other things you can convert. I guess it actually supports native PDF as well now too. I haven't actually tried that in a long time since I did the review. But I mean, the only thing it doesn't support is EPUB, so that's the big gap. The good news is that there's a utility called Calibre. So if you have open, un-DRM'd EPUB files, it's really, really easy to run them through Calibre and get them into formats that the Kindle works with natively. And then you just drag them and drop them onto the Kindle like any other USB device. So that's all there is to it. EPUB is supported by the Nook, by the iPad, by iBooks. AZW, Mobi Pocket, and all those are for Kindle. Use that as you will. Logitech M505 mouse, which I like to carry around with me in my bag. Recently it stopped working, but only sporadically. Sometimes it will only work after power cycling, sometimes unplugging and plugging the receiver. Do you know of any user-friendly fix? That's a tough thing to troubleshoot. This is a wireless mouse, obviously. I would say there's a couple of things that could be wrong with it. It almost sounds like there's a loose wire someplace if it's on and off, or it could be that the battery terminals are not connecting properly, or you could have a bad power switch. Those are the first three places I'd probably look. It could be something that's like less fixable than that, but the power switch should be relatively easy to fix if you bust the mouse open. Definitely check the battery terminals inside the mouse and make sure get a little piece of sandpaper or an emery board maybe and give them a sand, both on the mouse side and on the battery side. And yeah, I mean, if that doesn't work, then open it up and see if there's a wire loose someplace. That seems kind of unlikely though, so good luck. Any phones that support both AT&T and T-Mobile's 3G. It's because they use different frequencies, so they need different radios and different antennas. I mean, that's it. There's not a whole lot to it. hooking up your iPhone or iPod into your car stereo. It's something I really like to do because I drive a fair amount, and I like to listen to podcasts and music and stuff in the car. Rob Reindl asks, what's the best way to hook up my iPhone 4 to play music and podcasts through the car stereo speakers with the best sound quality? My car has a CD and tape player, but no Bluetooth or hard connections. You got kind of a sticky wicket there, Rob. Basically, without any hard connections, it's going to be difficult for you to do anything. Basically, you need either an auxiliary input, which is going to be just like a headphone jack that you can plug the headphone jack from your iPhone or from a car dock or something like that into. You can also use an FM modulator. Belkin and tons of companies make those. They're in the accessory section at the iPhone, the Apple store, I guess, or Best Buy or wherever. I would look at a bunch of user reviews because they vary wildly in quality. Since every high-end phone right now has very similar hardware, do you think that in the near future there will be an option to buy a phone without the OS, then choose your own software? Well, okay, there's two answers to this. One, this is something I think would be really cool if it happened. I don't think it's going to because the phones and the OSs are really tightly tied together. And some companies, like Apple, don't want you running their OS on other people's hardware or running other people's OSs on their hardware. That said, there are a lot of phones like the Galaxy S series from Samsung that are remarkably similar even across platforms. So Galaxy S is a Hummingbird, big OLED screen, plastic body, all the kind of stuff that we've talked about a lot. The Samsung Focus on AT&T is almost exactly the same hardware. It's a different CPU, but it's the same basic form factor, same kind of design, running Windows Phone 7. So I think we'll see a lot of cross-pollination between Windows Phone 7 and Android. I don't think that we're going to actually be able to buy a phone and choose which OS you run on it. There is an exception, kind of a caveat to this. On Android, there's a lot of third-party ROMs that are, it's open source, so people can download the source, compile it, build themselves, write their own apps, pull in the stuff that they like, and kind of make it's like a Linux distro almost for your phone. So the most popular one is called CyanogenMod. It's been available for a long time. They're shipping on at least a half dozen phones, and I think more like 10 or something like that now, including the T-Mobile phone, the G1, the Hero. There's a whole boatload of phones that they support. Just go to CyanogenMod. I think it's .com, but you might want to Google it and see what they have. So you can definitely, if you buy a phone that's supported by Cyanogen or one of the other third-party ROM vendors, they're free to download. You can reflash your phone, try out the new ROM, and maybe get an experience more close to something you'd like. It's not the same as switching from Android to Windows Phone 7, but it's definitely better than being stuck with the crappy version of Android that some phone manufacturers are putting on their phones these days. And that will wrap it up for this week's mailbag. As always, if you have questions, you can get them answered by sending them to formspring.me/tested. Try to keep them short, relatively on topic, or at least really interesting. And I answer them more or less every Friday and post them on Saturday or Sunday. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.